Okay, everybody, it's nice to see such a relatively large turnout for our meeting today. This is a meeting of the Changsha Human Rights Group. We have more kind of regular meetings, but this is a special meeting with an invited audience, you might say, and we have a special format for today's meeting, which I'll try as chair. I will try and keep proceedings to a fairly tight schedule. First of all, to say welcome everybody. We've got people here from Germany, China, Turkey, possibly South Africa, and elsewhere. My name is Joe Finnerty. I'm based in University College, Cork, and I'm going to be chairing the meeting and acting as interlocutor. And the structure of the meeting is Peter Herrmann, Juan, and Mehmet Okyayuz will each give a brief presentation, and I will ask one or two questions and maybe invite the other two participants to briefly ask a question, time permitting, and then at the end, after about 35 minutes roughly, if time permitting, I will throw the session open to questions from the audience, and we'll aim to finish at around five minutes to the hour. I'm aware of the importance of punctuality and sticking to a schedule. Some additional housekeeping. The meeting will be recorded. I don't know if Peter has it already started to be recorded. Yeah. So anybody who doesn't want to appear on the recording, they may turn their camera off. While the three presenters are presenting and the questions and answers afterwards, could I ask people just to make sure that their microphones are switched off, please? And I'm just going through my list of things. Hopefully we won't have any technical issues. If there are any technical issues, we blame our technical staff who operate on a very handsomely remunerated, so there would be no excuse if technical things went wrong. And I can see people still joining the meeting. Very good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, in the order of presentation will be Peter Herrmann first, then Mehmet Okyayuz, and then Juan Lee. So I'm going to, just keeping an eye on the time, and a minute or two ahead of my schedule, I'm going to ask Peter Herrmann from Central South University, but currently based in Berlin, to present. Thank you, Peter.
Well, presenting myself briefly, I am in Berlin, living currently, but working in China, Changsha, and I did work over the years in many other countries. So my approach is really to look for something that is common in terms of human rights, although I think we have the problem, in a way, we can say a problem, that it's always said human rights are universal. We have a problem in this way that, yes, it is universal, it's a universal problem, but at the same time, we face the situation that we have very different conditions in the different countries, in many countries. So coming from there and looking at what is the main challenge when we talk about human rights today is that we can have two ways to approach this. The one is the function. What is our role as academics? And we can say as well there are certain topics that are really important to look at when it comes to discussing human rights as the challenge for academics. Now, bringing this together, trying to link the two approaches, I thought about what are actually human beings. We always say there is a universal thing, human being, but at the same time it is contextualized. We are living as social subjects, we are living as historical subjects, and we are not alone in this universe. Meaning, on the one hand, we have nature, environment, increasingly making itself known. And we have increasingly another challenge, artificial intelligence and digitization, meaning they claim increasingly to have an own role to play when it comes to history. So this means we have to think, where are we standing as human beings and what rights do we have? On the one hand, linking it to other potential actors, nature, artificial intelligence, robots, androids, and at the same time to say, are we actually really the center of all this? Because talking about human rights, we in a way deny the rights of others, deny the rights of nature, deny the rights of, up to recently, deny the rights of animals. So we have increasingly a change of what are we actually in this respect. If we look at the human rights discussion itself, we face, I think, one problem. It had been historically shaped by the situation after the Second World War, and it was very much a matter of universal human rights are the rights of capitalist, United States-oriented capitalism or modernization, if we want. So in this respect, we have to look, on the one hand, the definition, understanding of human is increasingly narrowed. It's we, and then it's I, it's me. And at the same time, we have, if we really go to look at a general understanding of human rights, we have the Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci, who literally connects to everything that is around him and is part of it. I don't know if you know this figure, stretching out the arms in the square, in the circle, being part of the universe. So instead of narrowing it, there we find the other way around of widening it. There had been a book, and there I'll close with that, Desmond Morris, the name, The Naked Ape. May sound funny, but he says actually the man, human beings, is the most unspecialized being. All other animals are kind of specialized. They can do one thing, but are not really universal actors. In this way, I think we have to fight for, if you want, a universal acceptance or the acceptance of humans as universal beings, being able to do their own thing, not introspective, but in reaction to their environment, whatever it is. And that means as well to open the view of on human rights, to say there is a human right to connect with your environment, whatever it is. And that means the social environment, that means the natural environment, instead of specialization, universalizing, again, overcoming alienation of human beings by technological, by capitalist modes of production, and so on and so forth. So I think that is enough of a challenge. And if we really get there is another question, or how we can get there, that's the question we have to discuss. So I'll stop here and pass on or back to Joe.
Thanks very much, Peter. And you timed your presentation in an exemplary fashion. So that's an example to our other contributors. A very wide-ranging set of topics covered in a very condensed amount of time. I have two questions. Just following on from the abstract that you had sent me previously and your presentation just now. As you pointed out, the original formulation of human rights, or the contemporary, the one that we're most familiar with, had a focus on the individual and a bias arguably towards an implicit, underpinned by private property relations and a possessive individualism, if you like. And so you've listed other ontological entities, if you like, and dimensions, including AI, including animals, including nature. And the project of extending rights from that narrow understanding, from the eye, to the Leonardo da Vinci, to that capacious, expansive understanding. Is there a danger of rights inflation? If everything has rights, can we say no particular thing has rights?
I don't think there's the other way around. I think actually we can overcome this danger by making it specifically to, or defining it specific to the given conditions, and not talking about human rights in abstract terms. In abstract terms, it's very easy to say, well, everything is, and everybody has the right to do whatever. But if we link it to the concrete conditions, it's a different story. And this is where societies, national societies, global relationships changed over time. So we have to adapt to this instead of saying, instead of approaching this question in abstract terms. Get concrete. What does it mean? Why do we treat other people in the way we do? And then to move on to say, or to ask from there, what is actually wrong? And this is, of course, a matter of academics, or a matter for academics to say, well, we cannot, you cannot move on. For instance, that's a major, still a major question in treating women as we did for centuries, and we still do. Including then we move to nature, that we say there is something where we have to accept animals' rights, and where we have to accept not just my right in terms of individual rights, but our rights in terms of humankind in the environment as it develops.
Thank you. My second question, Peter, relates to the, if you like, to use a classical Marxist language, who are the kind of the subjects of history. If history, not in the grand sense, but in terms of promoting a revised conception of human rights, in the Marxist conception, it was the working class as informed, if you like, or as engaging with Marxist, Leninist theory, and so on. What's the role of the academic in liaising or informing popular struggles by NGOs, by political parties, by social movements?
Well, first of all, thanks for the question, because yes, he says this part, but he says at the same time, we are part of metabolism, or our work, especially labor, is a matter of metabolism with exchange with nature. And I think this defines as well our role as academic subjects, that of course, due to our studies, we know more about certain issues, how to relate, and how we can relate to the environment. If you look at simple things like the step from Newton to Einstein to quantum physics, Heisenberg and others, we are getting aware of more possibilities, and we are getting more aware of the responsibility we have as subject. As individual, I don't mind if I throw away some waste. If I know and if I'm informed that I shouldn't do it due to the consequences, I won't do it anymore. if I know, again, part of our work as academic, how to deal with the waste, what we can do with it, then it's another responsibility of us to make aware of it. And then, of course, to look at the long-term consequences. In long-term consequences and global consequences.
Thank you very much, Peter, dialing in from Berlin. What I'm going to do now is, what I'm proposing to do is go straight then to the second presentation. There'll be an opportunity then later on in this meeting for the other presenters to ask questions of each other, perhaps. But for the moment, I'm going to carry on with the second presentation, which comes from Mehmet Okyayuz from the Middle East Technical University in Ankara in Turkey. Mehmet, the floor is open to you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you also, Peter, for your presentation. I will speak a little bit, and I think this is a little bit complementing what Peter said. I will speak a little bit about the historical side or framework of thinking, I will speak about the reasons why scientists not only should be responsible for something, for human rights actings, but how history has somehow pushed them into this position. If we see, so the responsibility of science or scientists, I think, towards society or towards the conflicts and other debates inside society has increased with the degree of social differentiation. This means that the more, especially when we speak of the 13th century onwards, early Renaissance humanism, the more scientific findings emerge from the isolated sphere into the social sphere, pushing themselves into the outside world. That means, so to speak, the more larger audience groups enter the circle of informed people. We can see this again in the 13th century. For example, remember Dante wrote in Italian. That means he had from now on an audience who could read and write and understand Italian. So the more people during the process of history entered the circle of informed people, and the more they were enabled to form a more or less conscious judgment about the processuality of the world, the more science itself, I think, becomes social. It means science left during the process of history more and more the narrow space of pure contemplation. That means humanities in some way became social sciences, but also natural sciences have become somehow social sciences in this context described above. Roughly speaking, the boundaries between scientific disciplines became more and more eliminated, or they should become eliminated because of this sociality of science based on the process of history. Of course, not in a technical sense, but because we have still technical specialization, but in a general intellectual sense. I think these things are objective processes which will more or less challenge the way in which scientists do their, implement their findings. In this respect, I think every form of thinking during history, not only based on our work or on our private decisions, has become to entail responsibility. The scientific identity became complemented, or should be complemented, by a comprehensive general intellectuality. And I think this is exactly something which is nowadays in the present somehow missing. That means this general intellectuality which intervenes into the theoretical discourse and, so to speak, for our human rights topic, prepares the implementation of findings into the world of life and work. So science can no longer, I think, objectively, even if it does do it still, it can no longer evade this social responsibility due to the described interconnection of various aspects, such as the impossibility of separating individual and social crisis, individual needs and social necessities. I think these are now must come nearer and cannot be separated from each other. It must therefore be the task of human rights discourses, among other things, to clarify these processes, I think, in such a way that a new universality of human rights, what Peter said, but I mean, of course, not a classical form of universality, but a new universality of human rights, which are bringing the different social, cultural, economic aspects, etc., trying to bring them together, also particularities of different countries, of different social formations. So this should be a new way to should be newly re-identified and reformulated. What nowadays happens is on the other side, and this is a little bit unfortunately so, it is particular interests nowadays are currently dominating, I think, which is one of the most important problems in theory and practice of human rights discourse. Even if we have, especially in the 20th century, a lot of positive developments after certain experiences like fascism, which resulted somehow in good aspects and good beginnings. But I think, again, the all in togetherness of responsibility, of sociality, individual interest, of finding, of sharing it with a bigger audience, which began to be prepared during the centuries, should be one of the most important foundations, I think, of a new human rights discourse. This is my short presentation. I have, of course, it's general, but we have, because of the lack of time, I will also finish here. I don't know how long I've spoken, but I think not too long.
Thank you very much, Mehmet, for that very interesting and again concise statement of your position. The questions I had prepared were based on the abstract you had submitted. There's perhaps a slight change in emphasis, or maybe just in language rather than in emphasis. My first question, it's really just one question, in fact. What I took from your abstract, and forgive me if it's a misinterpretation, was reference to the role of the public intellectual, if you like, and the societal commitment of such a figure, and you've elaborated on that in general, maybe with a slightly different emphasis in your presentation just now. My question then is: are there certain risks or potential dangers in the socially committed intellectual?
Is this your question, though?
Yes.
I think this is always the question of when science, which we speak, or academy, tries to go beyond a narrow form of, let's say, intellectual contemplation, so to say. But on the other side, it is, I think, something which will make the situation much better. I think if we speak of human rights as academicians, I think there is always the fact that we cannot approach purely scientific, because everything which we speak about human rights will always and permanently somehow affect our lives. So on the one side, if we deal with human rights, we are shifting away a little bit from the old, well-known academic approach. But on the other side, this gives us the chance, I think, if we shift away from this approach, to come together, as I've mentioned, with other parts of audience, which we can then share our ideas. And so this is, I think, a double-sided thing, which is still not very clear to do, but I think we should start to do this. I will give another example, not to extend my words. The same problem we have with certain other topics in science. For example, if we deal with fascism, which is one of my topics, fascism theory, this is the same problematic. We are always involved personally, more than other topics. And this is both something negative if we stay in our individual sphere, let's say, But if we go outside of our individual contemplative act, then this negative, purely academic thing, which can be criticized by purely academic approaches, will then a little bit, how can we say, enrich the atmosphere or the discussion inside the society. And I think this is needed. And if we do enrich this aspect inside society, then what we call this interactivity can be increased, and also the different branches of academia. In our own group, we have always spoken about, remember, for example, law and social sciences, which is a little bit fragmented from each other and separated. And if we would go into this risk to bring into the foreground a certain form of non-classic individual approach, then we could maybe share our ideas much clearer. But I think it is, of course, risky because it is something new. And this is the reason why I said we should reformulate and redefine and redetermine a new form of universality of human rights, which should not be abstract.
Thank you very much for that presentation and for answering those awkward questions, perhaps, Mehmet. Thank you very much. Which brings us to the third part of our meeting today, of our session today. And I'm pleased to welcome Juan Lee from Changsha University.
Hi, thanks, Joe. Yeah. Okay, talking about the name, I need to clarify a bit. Actually, my name, the pronunciation is Juan. Usually, okay, though you call me Yuan or Juan. You know, Juan is like the Spanish name, huh? It's a male name, but okay, because when I was in Europe, just many people call me Juan or Joe. Yeah, made some, I would say you are more nearer to the Chinese pronunciation. But in Chinese, we pronounce it in a more like plosive way, Juan. A little bit challenging for you. This is special. Juan. Plosive, yes. Yeah. Juan. Okay. Yeah.
I'm learning.
Yeah, you can follow your habits.
It's extraordinary. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, some extra. A brief introduction of myself. I'm based in Central South University, now affiliated to Human Rights Center. My research area now actually is quite extensive, and but basically now I am focused on the AI and law, and also the human rights, the challenges of human rights faced in the digital age. So today my reflection on this topic, our topic actually is the role of the academic facing in addressing contemporary societal challenges. Actually, this is what I am thinking. Actually, my discussion would a little bit to resonate with Mehmet's proposition on academic responsibility. But what I'm going to claim is that a scientist should not only play her role as an intellectual, but also as an expert in this post-pandemic world. So now you may have noticed that my discussion actually is more contextualized, comparing to backward looking. I'm a little bit more forward looking. So it's for the academics, we should not only play the role as intellectual and expert, but also assume our responsibility to speak to our contemporary readers, and furthermore offer them insights that resonate with contemporary issues and problems. Here, what I feel that scientists should be more concerned over contemporary issues and problems. I actually put much emphasis on her responsibility to develop and disseminate common sense knowledge. My arguments are briefed as follows. The pandemic ignites the social cleavage, leading to splitting perceptions among people, plus the centrality of digital media in daily use during the pandemic has exacerbated the information cocoon, which means people live in a self-centered information enclave, deviating from embracing the science or even the common sense knowledge. Worse still, the prevalence of online fake news and misinformation generates misperception and would reinforce the misbelief people already had or held. Against this backdrop, it is not uncommon to see the polarized perception of beliefs on social media. Specifically, some comments are often posted as a consequence of emotional outbursts that ignore or defy common sense knowledge. But in this moment, a scientist is the best one, so in my mind, situated to help people understand the real world and develop common sense knowledge. So it is also the responsibility of a scientist to do so. So to explain further what I mean, I would like to make an example. Actually, this is a story of a Chinese social scientist. His name is Luo Xiang. He's a criminal law professor at CUPL, which is the largest university on law in China. He has been there for more than 20 years. For the past 20 years, he actually is just doing his research or teaching in a very normal way like us. But before the COVID-19, and suddenly he become a celebrity of sorts, thanks to his engrossing teaching style and enthusiastic fan following. A very interesting story is that the professor, he created an account on the video sharing site Bilibili, which is based in China. And very soon, he ranked up 1.7 million followers in just 5 days. The special thing about Luo's short video is that he brings criminal law to life through creative story telling and deadpan humor. So in this way, he helps people to understand that the world exists today, especially in the area of law. During the pandemic, Professor Luo Xiang's video on legal knowledge helped to eliminate the prejudice of the public and clear up a number of cognitive misconceptions. So this is what I am thinking, and also it also spurs me to think about what I can contribute to as a social scientist to address the challenges facing in the contemporary society, especially in the digital age. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Another succinct presentation, very interesting. Thank you so much. My question was two parts to the question, if I may. And you make a plausible and compelling case for the role of the scientist, the social scientist in public education, you might say, although that's not the term you used. I'm just wondering two kind of possible objections to your understanding of your approach. One is is medical knowledge, for example, on the same is medical knowledge on a firmer basis, a more scientific, traditional, natural science basis than some of the knowledge that we have about society? So is social science on the same par as medical science? Do we have the same authority in our claims about the nature of the social world? So that's number one. And a related question is, and this brings a reference to human rights. I'm distinguishing in, say, even within social science disciplines between more factual claims about the world and more normative claims about the world. So sometimes there are more factual claims and there are more human rights discourse, for example, as we know, exhibits or embodies a lot of normative claims about how the world should be. So those are my two kind of questions, observations, if that makes sense.
Yes, thanks, Joe. So if I understand correctly, so the first question is that the public knowledge, you mean the social scientists showed the responsibility to disseminate is whether natural language or natural science or social science. This is the first question, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. The first question, I think, for me, I'm more concerned with social knowledge. If there is a comparison between the natural knowledge and the social knowledge, comparing to the first one, I would say that, yes, there is. It is also the responsibility of natural scientists to do. For instance, in the context of the COVID-19, and it's not only in China but also in the world around, whether it is necessary to have the masks on during the COVID-19, and still, I think the scientists they showed the role that they have to play the role to educate the public, But of course, we have to admit that's cleavage in the first place. But later on, and after more proofs, and so people, the public, they have accepted the knowledge and acknowledged that it is necessary. But it is also, I would say, it is also this the natural scientists' contribution. Now, the first one, in my discussion, I'm more concerned with the social knowledge. As I give the example of Professor Luo Xiang, he is more concerned with the dissemination of legal knowledge. For the public, I would say this legal knowledge and law is a little bit professional for the public, but in the context of pandemic, law is more, I would say, is more than ever closer to people's life. For instance, yes, when they have to stay at home and they have to receive the medical check. Sometimes it is they are obliged to do, but these are actually a lot of legal issues and arising from this series of events. So Luo Xiang actually plays his role in explaining why it is why we have to do so, and what are our rights in the law, and especially some of the wrongdoings from the government. He would point out. So he is the right one, and I would say more appropriate comparing to like the government officials, because during that time, government officials, they would not be, sometimes people would show doubt against them, but the social scientists, that's not. Yeah, so this is my concern. And for the second question is that it is the factual claim or is it not claim, right?
Yeah, the facts.
So you mean my claim?
Yeah. So some of the human rights. Sorry. Yeah. You understand? Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I'm more concerned with the first, and okay. My preference is the factual claim.
Sure.
Because when I'm making the example of the digital age, and especially the fake news and misinformation. Or sometimes we can say it's like disinformation, but misinformation is not. People would not disseminate or create it with intent. The disinformation actually people do it intentionally. But fake news and also the misinformation actually people it is not it's not the they choose to do so. is that they are enclaved. It is that, okay, actually they do not have the knowledge. They cannot judge whether this is right or wrong. But when they see the news, prevalence and on the internet, they just follow the suit. So actually, I'm more concerned with the factual claims. But the normative one, I think it is maybe this some stage afterwards. First, we have to do some of the in the cognitive stage. Yeah. So this is my response.
Thank you for that. And I see we're adhering strictly to my schedule, so that's good too. Now, what I'm proposing to do is to, in a very kind of controlled way, open up the discussion. So in the first instance, I'm going to, thank you again to our three contributors, and I'm going to, if any of them have a comment on the other presentations or some additional comment. I'll start with Peter. Peter, have you any?
Well, I would have actually a comment or question. Many we could go on for hours, but linking.
I'll stop you if you go on for more than 2 minutes.
6 hours. I thought it's very interesting and supporting my thesis. Actually, the pronunciation and going further. In China, everybody has an English name, literally or usually meaning an American name, probably. Why do we not even try to get a Chinese name or whatever? So this shows, I think, the dominance. There are more people speaking Chinese and more people speaking Spanish than English, but we see the consequence. Now, this, I think, is important as well. McLuhan, I think, was it, who said the medium is the message. And this is my point there. I would kind of oppose or contradict when you say this, or even talk about a differentiation, separation between science and natural science. We should have an orientation on what may be called polymath. Leonardo da Vinci, he was expert in everything. And it was science and it was natural science. So I think this is important and may link as well to what Mehmet said, to get responsibility not by our specialization, but on the contrary, by considering as much as possible in terms of space, in terms of subjects, in terms of time. And this is, I think, important in the understanding of extending then, if we want to go on and link it to rights, we are on a move increasingly towards socialization, not in terms of the Zoan Politikon, the social being, but in terms of we depend on each other, on the knowledge from other sides, and so I think this is important then to develop responsibility from there, to say, no, we are not responsible as experts of one area, but we are responsible in terms of being able to communicate and to process of communication beyond our small area. And this confirming as well what you say in terms of the teaching, learning.
Thank you, Peter. Mehmet, have you any?
Thank you, Peter. I wanted to make an addition to what Peter said, to pronounce it correctly. This was exactly what I meant with my presentation, with this historical framework. I think what is needed towards the public of responsibility, this is to in quotes, destroy a little bit this fragmentation and separation of sciences, which is, as I said, technically inside the debates needed, maybe inside the academy itself. But when we go to the audience, to the public, we have to eliminate a little bit this separation and this distinctions, because otherwise, I mean, we can give informations to ourselves as scientists. By the way, the word scientist or science is also something I say positively. Maybe it should be a little bit prevented to be responsibility of certain people to speak of human rights, especially implementation. And so we should maybe, if we go to the so-called world, in quotes, of course, the outside world, we should be more preventing classical distinctions, because as I have said, if we look to the historical process, then how can we say, all these sciences became social in a general, comprehensive sense. What I meant was natural science became also a little bit social science or science of the society, let's say. And I think this is important to present this aspect in front of the public, which then should then we should be able, as I said, to develop a new sort of universalism, which I mentioned before, which should go beyond abstractness. This is what I wanted to say again. Of course, this seems to be a little bit utopian, but nevertheless, maybe it's not unimportant.
Thank you. And finally, and I now will get your name pronounced incorrectly, Yua Lee.
Yeah. Yes. Good.
I've done one thing right. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I am a little bit different from Peter's standpoint, actually. So I noticed that in your presentation you mentioned that there should not be a distinction between the specialized and unspecialized. But in my view, actually, I would collect it to my discussion. You know, I still think that as a scientist, there's still necessary to distinguish between the social science and natural science. I would make an example. You know, in today. 2022-3 this year actually is different because of the birth of GPT. You know that GPT is quite specialized in generating information, also including the fake news, fake information. The reason to do so is actually, of course, is because of his you know, we say this like the black hole or black something like that. But actually, when the GPT generates the information, it is harmful in some sense. Now, I think it is when we are talking about the responsibility of the scientist. As a social scientist, as a natural scientist, we have to be more professional than the information. Because the information generated by GPT actually is quite, at least it appears very professional, and it appears very credible. For the general public, they cannot distinguish. They cannot figure out whether it is like the authenticity is true or false. But now it would be the social scientist or the natural scientist to figure out is authenticity. But it is also only possible that it is expert to show the responsibility to do so. So this is my argument, my counter argument. So what Peter's, yeah.
Okay, what I'm proposing to do now is we've got a few minutes left. I'm going to throw the discussion open to the floor. So if anybody wants to ask a question of our panelists, maybe if you raise your hand, Dennis is, no. I used to have a teacher who would say, anybody got any questions, and nobody would ask, and the teacher would then say, yes, everything is so clear that everybody understands perfectly. There's no need for any questions. But I'm not going to say that. It would be very corny. Okay, great. I'm going to wrap up now. Peter, just Professor Herrmann, I'm pronouncing your surname correctly, I believe. All this multiculturalism, it's too much for me. I'm a simple boy from Ireland. Peter, we just on a technical note, the recording will be available where?
The recording will be available, and I will put it as well to have it. Sorry, I make one substantial remark further, to have it transcribed automatically by machine intelligence. And this was my point in terms of you can use it in these technical issues, and then we come together with technical and with science and natural science. We can use it in terms of diversification, in terms of spreading information, making it not multicultural, but multi-subject oriented or whatsoever. Or we can, and this is I see as danger, we can use it as narrowing it down. And you find actually in these transcripts exactly this. They have meat as meat with EA or EE. It doesn't distinguish anything. And as human beings, we can, be it science or natural science, we can distinguish between MEET or MEAT. This is something where digitization is simply narrowing it down, making whatever it understands without understanding. So yes, it will be available, the transcript as well, but with artificial stupidity.
And we can all see what Peter did there. He managed to have the last word. So with that,
no, that's up to you now. The last word, not really.
But yeah, the last substantive word. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending. We've had a nice turnout. Thank you for all your questions. Oh no, there weren't any. Yeah, no, thank you. But of course, a big thanks to our three contributors for their very interesting thoughts on a wide-ranging set of issues around academia, artificial intelligence, public communications, public commitment. So a very rewarding discussion, I think. And as Peter mentioned, that recording will be available shortly. So thank you to everybody. And Peter, I'm going to let you shut down the meeting as host. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon or evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody.
Everybody. Good time.